Catus Maximus here, this time with the pair of Ford adjustable pliers. These are traditional slip joint pliers, not groove joint pliers like channel lock. They just happen to be Fords. Came with more than likely Model Ts, Model As, and it's quite easily that these are a 100-year-old set of pliers, just made out of carbon steel. I'm not sure when Ford actually stopped providing hand tools like this with their automobiles. One thing I'm surprised about is, I've run into a Ford wrench and a couple other Ford tools here and there. I think when people see them, kind of like Snap-on, as far as name recognition and just saying, oh, look, that tool actually has the word Ford on it, I think I'll pick it up and just keep it in my collection. Kind of like what people do with Snap-on. But still surprised on how infrequently I run into Ford branded tools, because if Model Ts and Model As came with these tools, I mean, between the Model T and the Model A combined, Ford sold 21 million of those vehicles, which would imply that there were tens of millions of sets of these pliers. If they came with every vehicle, then there are tens of millions of sets of these pliers are manufactured. I wonder where the heck they all went. Who's hoarding all the Ford pliers? Because this is the only set I've ever seen. Kind of interesting because this point end here is intentionally sharpened. I think to act as like a prying tool, maybe a slot head screwdriver. Another thing I think is interesting, and I couldn't find any pairs of diamonds, but many manufacturers use actual nut and bolt, kind of like this. But then more recently, maybe in the last 10 or 20 years, like this really modern set of channel lock, super modern because it's laser etched, have gone back to the hot rivet rather than the threaded bolt just because it's more reliable. Well, that's what Ford did. They were hot riveting these a century ago. And guess what? It's actually held up. Now, obviously, this pair of pliers, we can tell just by the condition of the jaws, they haven't been used much. I don't know if these have been repainted at some point in their life, although when you open them up and you kind of look at the area in here, I actually think that this is just original, the OG original carbon finish. They don't say made in USA or anything else on them. Real obvious thick forging lines here. They didn't really spend much time, finishing them. All they did was just do a little sanding of the forging line on the handles just so it wasn't quite so pronounced. So these weren't obviously trying to compete with the finest of hand tool manufacturers of the era, in which there were plenty. Other things that we'll notice is, they're pretty standard. We still have the bypass cutters at the back of the jaws. The center section, the real aggressive tooth section there, is actually pretty shallow. And one thing, like we can see on these channel locks, is how they've made it more curved, a little bit larger, and once again here, the teeth are really aggressive. So that's just been a slight design change. But other than that, this pair of slip joint pliers is a pair of slip joint pliers. These just happen to be Fords, and are, certainly don't show up every day. That's, or every time you run into old tools at a garage sale or something. And it's really surprising knowing how many of these Ford hand tools are made, how hard they are to come by. They must have melted them all down during World War II or something like that. Anyway, just wanted to make a little video about it. General Motors has actually had quite a bit of involvement in hand tool manufacturing. And even when you go to O'Reilly's and you look at the Power Torque products, and a lot of them are GM, start with a GM for their part number, that really is General Motors. Power Torque, I don't know if they're still owned by General Motors, but they're certainly started. And so GM, I think, is the auto company that was the most heavy into hand tools. And that's why finding ones like Ford's just a little bit extra special. And Toyota hand tools, and things like BMW and Mercedes-Benz ones are also lots of them out there. They just don't run into them very often. It's just kind of weird how these hand tools that came with automobiles are just seem to have evaporated over the years. Anyway, thanks for watching.